This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to our daily sports roundup. We have a packed show today covering everything from Olympic heartbreak to major front office shakeups and the high-stakes world of professional hockey and basketball.
Lindsey Vonn reflects on her horrific Olympic crash recovery.
WNBA rankings place Aja Wilson at the very top.
Toronto Maple Leafs secure the first overall draft pick.
Internal unrest rocks Real Madrid before the big Clásico.
NHL mock drafts project Gavin McKenna as the prize.
General managers predict the next WNBA champion and MVP.
Critics blast the Maple Leafs' new general manager hire.
Nathan MacKinnon leads the Avalanche to a series lead.
Let's start with Lindsey Vonn. Lindsey Vonn's return to the slopes at age 41 was already a miracle of modern sports science and sheer willpower. After 5 years away and a partial knee replacement, she wasn't just participating, she was winning. However, the dream of a final Olympic gold in Cortina d'Ampezzo ended in a terrifying crash just 13 seconds into her run. The world watched in shock as she clipped a gate and tumbled down the mountain, her cries of pain captured on the live broadcast. It was a brutal reminder of the risks these athletes take. Now, months later, she is still using crutches and facing a recovery that will take at least another year. Despite the physical toll and the end of her competitive dreams, Vonn remains remarkably steadfast in her perspective on the journey.
It is truly inspiring to hear her talk about it now. In her interview with NPR, she was incredibly candid about the reality of her situation. She admitted that while she wishes the outcome had been different, she harbors absolutely no regrets about trying. For Vonn, the struggle is part of the growth. She views every obstacle and every crash as something that has shaped her into a better person. Even though she's currently navigating life in a wheelchair or on crutches, she describes herself as lucky and happy. That mindset is exactly why she was able to dominate the World Cup circuit for so long. She's always been someone who gets back up, and even if she isn't racing, that spirit of resilience is clearly still the driving force in her life today.
Now to the WNBA rankings. The 2026 WNBA season is finally here, and the landscape of the league has shifted dramatically following a historic offseason of massive salary increases. At the top of the mountain sits Aja Wilson, who is coming off a 2025 season where she essentially won everything possible. With 4 MVPs and 3 titles, she is firmly in the conversation for the greatest player to ever step on the court. But the talent behind her is catching up fast. We're seeing players like Kelsey Mitchell from the Indiana Fever coming off career-best scoring years, even after dealing with a scary health scare like rhabdomyolysis. The league is deeper than it has ever been, with stars spread across every major market from Minnesota to New York, making this upcoming season one of the most anticipated in the history of women's professional basketball.
The youth movement is also a huge part of the story. Aaliyah Boston has become a defensive anchor and a unique playmaker from the post, earning the largest contract in league history for her efforts. Then you have Paige Bueckers, who was the league's best guard in her rookie season with the Dallas Wings. She's already a top 10 player, ranking high in both scoring and assists while playing elite defense. Even with Caitlin Clark returning to health and potentially shifting the usage rates in Indiana, the sheer volume of elite talent is staggering. From established legends like Wilson to rising superstars like Bueckers and Boston, the 2026 season represents a new era where the financial rewards are finally starting to match the incredible skill level we see on the court every single night.
Next, the NHL Draft Lottery. The Toronto Maple Leafs have just secured a massive win off the ice by landing the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NHL Draft. This comes at a time of significant transition for the franchise, having just hired John Chayka as general manager, and bringing back the legendary Matt Sundin as an advisor. The lottery luck is a huge relief for a front office that was facing some very tough questions from the media during their introductory press conferences. Sundin himself noted how much this pick will help shape the future of the team. It's the first time the Leafs have won the lottery since 2016 when they drafted Austin Matthews. Interestingly, the draft is returning to Buffalo, the exact same location where they selected Matthews a decade ago, adding a sense of poetic symmetry to the event.
The timing couldn't be more critical because the team is currently grappling with the future of Austin Matthews after missing the playoffs for the first time in his career. Winning this pick with only an 8.5% chance is a total game changer, They jumped over the Vancouver Canucks, who had the best odds but fell to third. New GM John Chayka called it a fortuitous bounce that provides a monumental opportunity to change the team's trajectory. While he insists the overall strategy remains the same, having the chance to draft a prospect like Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg certainly accelerates any rebuilding or retooling process. For a fan base that has been through so much recent disappointment, this lottery win provides a much-needed spark of hope and a clear path toward a new era of competitive hockey.
Moving to Real Madrid unrest. Real Madrid is heading into El Clasico against Barcelona under a dark cloud of internal conflict. Reports have surfaced of multiple heated confrontations involving some of the team's biggest stars. Antonio Rudiger was reportedly the instigator of a training ground argument that unsettled the squad following their Champions League exit. While he tried to make amends with the team lunch, the tension clearly hasn't dissipated. Even more concerning are the reports surrounding Kylian Mbappé. The French superstar allegedly had a furious exchange with a member of the coaching staff during a training exercise, reportedly using insulting language after being flagged for offside. This isn't just a one-off incident. It seems to be part of a growing friction between Mbappé and the technical team that has been simmering for weeks, creating a very difficult atmosphere at Valdebebas.
The drama doesn't stop at the training ground either. Mbappé's recent trip to Italy and Sardinia while recovering from a hamstring injury has caused a major rift. While his teammates were fighting for a win against Español, he was seen vacationing, which many staff members viewed as a lack of commitment during a vital stretch of the season. His representatives have fired back, claiming he is being unfairly targeted, but the optics are undeniably poor. When you combine these personality clashes with the pressure of the upcoming match against Barcelona, it feels like a powder keg. The club's management is being criticized privately for not taking a firmer stance on these disciplinary issues. If they don't find a way to unify the locker room quickly, this internal strife could derail their entire season on the pitch.
Now for the mock draft. With the Toronto Maple Leafs officially holding the top pick, the hockey world is buzzing with projections for the 2026 NHL draft. The consensus prize for a long time has been Gavin McKenna, a rangy left wing known for his incredible playmaking and ability to drive the pace of the game. He's been compared to phenoms like Connor Bedard, though some scouts wonder if his ceiling is quite that high. Still, he is considered a franchise cornerstone. The big question for Toronto will be whether they keep him on the wing or try to convert him to center to fill a more traditional leadership role. However, McKenna isn't the only name at the top of the board anymore. The race for number one has become much tighter than anyone expected at the start of the season.
That's right. Sweden's Ivar Stenberg has been flying up the rankings lately. He's been playing in the SHL, which is a professional league, and for an 18-year-old to hold his own there is incredibly rare. His hockey IQ and high shot volume make him a constant threat on the ice. For a team like the Maple Leafs, who might want someone ready to make an immediate impact, Stenberg's professional experience could be the deciding factor. This draft class has a lot of parity at the top, which makes the lottery win even more interesting. Behind the top two, teams like Vancouver and Chicago are looking at a deep pool of talent. But for Toronto, the choice between the dynamic playmaking of McKenna and the pro-ready polish of Stenberg will define the next decade of their franchise.
Let's check the GM survey. The WNBA recently conducted an anonymous survey of all 15 general managers, and the results give us a fascinating look at how the league's decision-makers view the current landscape. When asked who will win the 2026 title, 40% of GMs pointed to Las Vegas. It makes sense, given they've won 3 of the last 4 championships and added Chennedy Carter to an already stacked roster. Aja Wilson was the overwhelming favorite for MVP, receiving 60% of the votes. Interestingly, when asked which player they would choose to start a franchise with today, Paige Bueckers actually took the top spot with 33%, beating out both Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson. This shows just how much the league's executives value Bueckers' all-around game and long-term potential as a foundational superstar for any organization.
The survey also highlighted which players caused the most headaches for opposing coaches. Again, Aja Wilson led the pack, with 60% of GMs saying she forces the most defensive adjustments. But there were some surprises in the breakout player category. Dominique Malonga of Seattle and Rickea Jackson of Chicago tied for the most votes there. Malonga is expected to be a centerpiece for the Storm this year, and GMs clearly see her as a rising force. It's also worth noting that while Caitlin Clark didn't sweep the categories, she was consistently mentioned across the board, from MVP favorites to franchise starting picks. This survey proves that while the veterans like Wilson and Stewart still rule the league, the next generation of stars is already commanding immense respect from the people who run the teams.
Next, the Leafs GM controversy. While the Maple Leafs are celebrating their draft lottery win, the hiring of John Chayka as general manager is being met with unprecedented hostility from the hockey community. During his introductory press conference, reporter Steve Simmons dropped a bombshell, stating he had spoken to 20 prominent NHL figures and 19 of them described the hire as a sham. The words used to describe Chayka were incredibly harsh, including con artist and fraud. This stems from Chayka's controversial tenure with the Arizona Coyotes, where he was hired as a 26-year-old analytics prodigy, but left under a cloud of failure and broken relationships. One of his most criticized moves was refusing to give franchise legend Shane Doan a final retirement season, a move that alienated fans and players alike. The skepticism in Toronto is palpable and very public.
The tension during that press conference was almost unbearable when Simmons pressed Leafs president Keith Pelley on how he could reach such a different conclusion than the rest of the league. Pelley's response was a curt dismissal. It's a massive gamble for a storied franchise like Toronto. Chayka was supposed to be a disruptor, but his track record in Arizona suggests he might be more focused on optics than building a winning culture. For a team that is already under a microscope, bringing in a figure who is so widely disliked by his peers is a bold and perhaps reckless move. If the Leafs don't see immediate success with this new leadership, the monumentally stupid label being thrown around by critics will only get louder. Chayka has a lot of work to do to prove he belongs.
Finally, the Avalanche victory. Nathan MacKinnon is proving once again why he is one of the most dominant forces in the NHL playoffs. In Game 2 against the Minnesota Wild, he didn't just rely on his world-class speed and scoring. He brought a physical edge that left the Wild reeling. MacKinnon delivered massive hits on Quinn Hughes and Matt Boldy, setting a tone of aggression that his teammates fed off of. He finished the night with a goal and 2 assists in a 5-2 victory, giving the Avalanche a commanding 2-0 lead in the series. This performance put him in elite company, as he became one of the few players in the last 40 years to record 3 straight 3-point playoff games. His coach, Jared Bednar, described him as being shot out of a cannon, highlighting his hunger to win every puck battle.
What's most impressive is how MacKinnon downplayed his own performance afterward. He was modest about the hits and the scoring, simply saying he was excited for playoff hockey. But his captain, Gabriel Landeskog, was quick to praise him, calling him the team's driving force on both ends of the ice. The Wild are now heading home for Game 3 with a lot of questions and very few answers. They even tried switching goaltenders, starting Philip Gustafsson, but the Avalanche offense still put up 5 goals. Colorado has now scored 14 goals in just 2 games. If MacKinnon continues to play with this level of physicality and offensive precision, it's hard to see how Minnesota can claw their way back into this series. The Avalanche look like a team on a mission to return to the finals.
That wraps up our sports briefing for today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more updates. This show is part of OnePlace. Have a great day.